Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder if your gut feelings really come from your gut? Or maybe you have a hunch about something that feels deeply personal. Well, this new study dives into this exact question. It asks whether we truly know the unconscious thoughts that shape our likes and dislikes. For decades, scientists have believed that some of our feelings and judgments happen underneath the surface of our awareness. We have explicit attitudes, things we can readily explain and feel sure about. Then there are implicit evaluations, maybe more like gut reactions or automatic preferences, that we might not even know we have. The big idea has been that the stuff behind these gut reactions, that unconscious mental content, is basically hidden from us. But lately, some researchers have started to question this. A lot of studies have shown that people can actually predict their own implicit evaluations pretty well. This has led some to believe that maybe this unconscious stuff isn't so hidden after all. Maybe we do have some access to it. This is where our researchers, Benedek, Kurdi, David E. Melnikoff, and Adam Morris came in. They thought that maybe those previous studies had a blind spot. They pointed out two main issues. First, those studies often use familiar things, like for example, people might have an implicit bias about a certain racial group. When asked to predict their score on a bias test, they already know a lot about that group, or what people generally think about them. This background knowledge could help them guess accurately without genuine introspection. Second, in many of those studies, people's explicit opinions and their implicit reactions tended to line up. If someone explicitly likes cats, they also implicitly like cats. So predicting their implicit preference might just mean assuming it's the same as their explicit one. So the researchers designed a clever set of experiments to test this. They wanted to create new implicit feelings about things people had never encountered before. And crucially, they wanted to make sure that people's explicit opinions and their new gut reactions were pulling in different directions. This way, guessing based on what you think you should feel or what you explicitly feel wouldn't lead you to the right answer about your implicit feelings. They ran 8 experiments involving thousands of participants. They created novel targets like new people or new social groups. Then they used different methods to shape people's impressions. In one type of experiment called impression formation, participants learned about a male target who was described as moral and a female target who was described as immoral. Now, interestingly, they found that participants often developed an implicit preference for the immoral woman, which they thought was due to pre-existing positive feelings towards women as a group. But their explicit opinion was that the moral man was better. See the disconnect. Then they asked participants to predict what their implicit evaluation would be. If people were truly introspecting about their gut feelings, you'd expect them to be pretty accurate. But what they found was quite the opposite. In one experiment, for example, participants actually predicted an implicit preference for the male target when their actual implicit feelings favored the female target. They were basically guessing in the wrong direction. They also found that when people couldn't rely on their explicit opinions to guide their prediction, that's when their accuracy really fell apart. Among participants whose implicit and explicit feelings were strongly opposed, their predictions were often wrong even about the direction of their own gut feelings. They used different methods to introduce new information and different ways to measure implicit feelings, like the implicit association test or IAT and the evaluative priming task or EPT. The results were consistent across these different approaches, whether they asked people to predict their absolute feelings or how their feelings would change, people struggled. So what does this all mean? The researchers conclude that there is little evidence that we can reliably introspect about the unconscious mental content behind our implicit evaluations. When we try to predict our gut reactions, it seems like we're often just guessing. And that guess is often based on our explicit opinions or our general ideas about how things usually work, not on a direct peek into our subconscious. It's like trying to guess what's inside a locked box. If you know the color of the box and you know that usually the contents are the same color as the box, you might guess the color of the contents correctly, but you haven't actually seen inside. You're making an educated guess. The researchers considered other explanations. Maybe people just didn't understand the tests, or maybe they were embarrassed to say what they really felt. But their experiments suggest these weren't the main reasons. They even did an experiment where people predicted how others would feel, which usually reduces embarrassment. Accuracy was still low. So this study really pushes back against the idea that we're fully aware of the unconscious drivers of our attitudes. It suggests that those deeply ingrained automatic reactions might be more hidden than we thought. This has big implications. If we can't directly know our own unconscious biases or preferences, then simply telling people to be aware of them might not be enough. It might mean we need different approaches to manage or change those biases. This research is really fascinating because it highlights the limits of our self-knowledge. It shows how much of our internal world might be operating on autopilot. It's a reminder that our conscious thoughts are only part of the story. So what do you think about these findings? Are you surprised that we might not be able to predict our own gut feelings? Let us know in the comments below. And if you like this deep dive into the mind, be sure to like this video and subscribe to Rubin's Mind Lab for more. Well, keep exploring the amazing and sometimes mysterious workings of the human mind. Thanks for watching.